Welcome back. You are listening to the home of forbidden romances. Prepare yourself, because tonight's story will leave you breathless. Blood doesn't just smell like copper. When there is enough of it, it smells like the ocean, salt, iron, and the deep, terrifying cold of the abyss. The devil didn't knock. He collapsed against the frosted glass of my clinic door, leaving a smear of crimson so vibrant it looked black under the streetlights. Rain lashed against the pavement of the neo-noir district of Old Viridia, a relentless deluge that drowned out the city's sins, but not the heavy, wet thud of a body hitting my threshold. I didn't rush. In the underground medical trade, urgency usually meant a trap. I finished drying my hands, the scent of antiseptic clinging to my skin like a second layer of dermis, and unlocked the deadbolt. The door swung open, and gravity did the rest. The man tumbled inward, a ruined masterpiece of expensive Italian wool and shredded flesh, gasping for air that his punctured lung refused to hold. Lightning flashed, illuminating a face I had memorized from a police sketch 3 years ago. The sharp jawline, the scar bisecting the left eyebrow, the brutal elegance of a predator. Roman Kalin, the enforcer, the man the papers said put a bullet in my brother's heart. And now, he lay at my feet, bleeding out on my linoleum, asking the universe for mercy he had never granted anyone else. "Help," he rasped, his voice like grinding stones. I stood over him, the ambient hum of the sterilization unit the only sound in the room. My hand moved to the scalpel in my pocket, fingers brushing the cold steel. It would be so easy. I wouldn't even have to cut him. I could just stand here, watch the light fade from those obsidian eyes, and tell the police I was too late. It was the justice Elias deserved. It was the karma the universe demanded. But I am a doctor before I am a brother. And perhaps, somewhere in the twisted darkness of my grief, I knew that death was too quick for a man like Roman Kalin. He needed to be alive to answer for his sins. "Get up," I commanded, my voice devoid of pity. "If you want to live, you have to move." The clinic was a sterile white box buried beneath a laundromat, a sanctuary for those who couldn't go to hospitals, gangsters, illegal immigrants, prostitutes, and thieves. The lights hummed with an irritating buzz as I cut away the soaking wet fabric of Roman's shirt. His torso was a landscape of violence. Old scars, silvery and jagged, mapped a life of brutality, but the new wound was the focal point. A large caliber entry wound in the lower abdomen. No exit wound. The bullet was still inside, rattling against his spine or shredding his intestines. "Don't." "Anesthesia." Roman gritted out, his hand gripping the metal edge of the surgical table so hard his knuckles turned white. "I wasn't planning on it. I lied. I had lidocaine. I had morphine. I had enough sedatives to put down a horse." But as I looked at the tattoo on his deltoid, a black serpent coiling around a dagger, the insignia of the Kalin Syndicate, my Hippocratic oath felt flimsy against the weight of my hatred. "Bite down on this," I said, shoving a leather strap between his teeth. I didn't offer comfort. I didn't offer a reassuring hand. I scrubbed up, snapped on latex gloves, and picked up the forceps. The next hour was a gruesome dance of intimacy and torture. Every time I probed the wound, his body arched, muscles seizing like steel cables snapping taut. Sweat pooled in the hollow of his throat, mixing with the grime of the alley. He didn't scream, though. He made low, guttural sounds, animalistic and raw, his eyes squeezed shut against the agony. I was inside him, my hands deep in the warm, wet cavity of his body, holding his life between my fingers. I found the bleeder, clamped it. I found the perforated bowel, sutured it. And finally, I found the bullet. It was lodged dangerously close to the iliac artery. One slip, one tremor of my hand, and Roman Kalin would be a memory. The scalpel hovered. "Do it," a voice whispered in my head. It sounded like Elias. Asterisk nicked the artery. Call it an accident. He killed me, Julian. He killed me, asterisk. My hand shook. Just a fraction. Roman's eyes flew open. They were dilated, black holes absorbing the harsh clinic light. He looked at me, really looked at me, through the haze of pain. He didn't see a savior. He saw the hesitation. He saw the murderer in my eyes reflecting his own nature. He spat the leather strap out. "Do it," he wheezed, blood bubbling at the corner of his lips. "If you're going to kill me, doctor." Look me in the eye when you do it. The audacity of the man. Even on death's door, he was challenging me, dominating the space. I exhaled a breath I didn't know I was holding. I'm not you, I hissed. With a precise, fluid motion, I dislodged the bullet and dropped it into the metal tray with a heavy clink. The sound rang like a church bell. I began to stitch him up, my movements aggressive, pulling the thread tight enough to leave a scar he would feel every time he breathed. I'm not saving you, I whispered, leaning down so my lips brushed his ear, the heat of his fever radiating against my cheek. I'm keeping you for myself. He passed out before the final knot was tied. Recovery was a cage match disguised as convalescence. I had handcuffed his left wrist to the rail of the recovery bed. It was a sturdy, vintage hospital bed, bolted to the floor. Roman woke up 14 hours later, the sedatives wearing off, leaving him stripped and vulnerable. I was sitting in the corner of the room, reading a medical journal I hadn't absorbed a word of, waiting. The moment he stirred, the atmosphere in the room shifted. The air became heavier, charged with static. He didn't panic. He didn't thrash. He tested the restraint, felt the cold metal against his wrist, and then turned his head slowly to face me. A bit kinky for a first date, Dr. Vane, he rasped. His voice was ruined, a deep baritone scratched by dehydration. I didn't smile. I stood up, walked over to the counter, and poured a glass of water. I brought it to him, but didn't hand it over. I held it just out of reach. You know my name? I said. It wasn't a question. I make it my business to know the names of talented men, Roman replied, his eyes tracking the water. Especially the ones who hold my liver in their hands. You killed my brother. The silence that followed was absolute. The hum of the refrigerator, the rain outside, the beat of my own heart, all of it vanished. Roman's expression didn't change, but his eyes. Something flickered there. Not guilt. Something older. Resignation. Elias, he said softly. The name sounded profane coming from his mouth. Don't say it. I snapped, setting the water down on the bedside table with a slam that made the liquid jump. Don't you dare speak his name with the same mouth you used to order his execution. I didn't order it. Liar. I leaned over him, placing my hands on the bed rails, trapping him. I read the police report. I saw the security footage. You were the last one seen entering the warehouse. You walked out alone. I walked out alone, Roman agreed, his gaze locking onto mine, unflinching. Because I was the only one left standing. But I didn't pull the trigger, Julian. Then who did? Uncuff me, and I'll tell you. I scoffed, a bitter, jagged sound. You think I'm stupid? You're the Viper of Viridia. I release you, and I'm dead. If I wanted you dead, you wouldn't have made it to the door to let me in, Roman said. He shifted, wincing as the stitches pulled at his abdominal muscles. I came here because I had nowhere else to go. My own men turned on me. The same men who killed Elias. I stared at him, searching for the lie. He was a master manipulator. Everyone knew that. He charmed his way into power and butchered his way to retention. But he was also a man who valued honor, according to the twisted code of the underworld. Why should I believe you? Because, Roman said, his voice dropping to a whisper, Elias was my lover, not my enemy. The world tilted on its axis. I stumbled back, hitting the counter behind me. What? We were together for a year. He was leaking information to me to help take down the rival syndicate. He was a double agent, Julian. But my lieutenant. He found out. He set us up. Roman's face twisted in pain, not physical, but something visceral and deep. I tried to save him. I took 3 bullets that night. But I couldn't stop the one that hit him. You're lying, I whispered, but my voice lacked conviction. The pieces. They fit. Elias's sudden wealth. His secretive phone calls. The way he had begged me to stop asking questions about his consulting job. Check my jacket, Roman said, nodding toward the pile of bloody clothes in the corner. Inside pocket. The locket. Open it. I moved like a sleepwalker. I picked up the ruined leather jacket, heavy with blood and rain. I reached into the interior pocket and pulled out a small, silver locket. It was tarnished, dented from the impact of a fight. I pried it open with a trembling thumbnail. Inside was a picture. Tiny, grainy, but unmistakable. It was Elias, laughing, his arm thrown around Roman's neck. Roman wasn't scowling. He was smiling, a genuine, unguarded smile I had never seen on the news. My knees gave out. I slid down the wall to the floor, clutching the locket. He told me to find you, Roman said from the bed. He made me promise. If I die, protect Julian. That was his last order. For 3 days, the clinic became a bunker. The dynamic shifted. I was no longer the jailer, and he was no longer the prisoner, though I kept the cuffs on for my own sanity. I cleaned his wounds. I fed him broth. I watched him sleep. And I watched him watch me. There is a specific kind of intimacy that breeds in high-stakes isolation. We were 2 men bound by a ghost, trapped in a basement while the city above hunted for the one thing we both wanted: revenge. Roman healed with unnatural speed. His strength returned in waves. I could feel the latent power in him when I changed his bandages, the density of his muscle, the heat of his skin. He stopped fighting the restraints and started testing me. You have his hands, Roman said one evening. I was applying fresh gauze to his side. His skin was fever-hot, smooth over the ridges of muscle. Stop, I murmured, keeping my eyes on the wound. And his stubbornness, Roman continued, ignoring me. He reached out with his free hand, his rough fingers brushing against my wrist. The contact sent a jolt of electricity straight up my arm, settling heavy and hot in my stomach. But you're colder than he was. Sharper. I had to be, I said, my voice tight. He was the dreamer. I was the one who stitched up the reality. You're shaking, Julian. I looked up. Roman was staring at me, his gaze intense, predatory, but not malicious. It was a hunger, a recognition. I'm not shaking, I lied. You are. He moved his hand from my wrist to my cheek, his thumb tracing the line of my jaw. You're terrified. Not of me, but of what's happening right now. Nothing is happening, I breathed, leaning into his touch despite myself. I was starving for contact, for understanding, and God help me, the monster in my bed was the only one who knew the language of my grief. We are the same, you and I, Roman murmured. Both left behind, both full of rage. He pulled me closer. The distance between us evaporated. I could smell the soap I had used to wash him, the metallic tang of his blood, and the underlying scent of musk and danger that was purely him. Roman, unlock me, he whispered against my lips. Let me show you I'm not the enemy. The key was in my pocket. It felt like lead. Logic screamed at me to run, to sedate him, to call the police. But instinct told me that the only way to survive the coming storm was to unleash the beast. I reached into my pocket. The click of the lock was deafening. Roman didn't attack. He didn't run. He surged forward, capturing my mouth in a kiss that tasted of desperation and war. It wasn't gentle. It was acclaiming. His hands, finally free, tangled in my hair, pulling me down onto the narrow bed with him. I should have fought. I should have pushed him away. Instead, I gripped his shoulders, careful of his wounds, and kissed him back with 3 years of accumulated hatred turning into something far more volatile. The shatter of glass broke us apart. A Molotov cocktail crashed through the high window of the clinic, exploding against the far wall. Fire roared to life, licking at the medical supplies, turning the sterile white room into an inferno. They found us, Roman growled. He was off the bed in a second, ignoring the pain in his side. He moved with terrifying efficiency, grabbing a Glock he had taped under the mattress. God knows when he put it there. Get down, he shouted, shoving me behind the heavy metal surgical table just as bullets began to shred the door. The clinic was filling with smoke. The alarms were blaring. The front door burst open, and 3 men in tactical gear poured in, silhouetted by the streetlights and the fire. Roman didn't hesitate. Asterisk bang. Bang. Asterisk 2 shots. 2 bodies dropped. He was a surgeon in his own right, but his instrument was death. Julian, the back exit. Roman yelled over the roar of the fire. It's blocked. I screamed back, coughing as the acrid smoke filled my lungs. Then we go through them. Roman turned to me, his face illuminated by the flames. He looked magnificent. He looked like the god of war. Stay behind me. If anyone gets close, use the scalpel. He grabbed my hand, interlacing his fingers with mine. His grip was iron. We moved as one entity. Roman took point, firing with lethal precision. I saw the man who had ordered the hit, a hulking brute with a gold tooth, the lieutenant. He stepped through the smoke, an assault rifle raised. Roman was out of ammo. The lieutenant grinned. Goodbye, boss. Time slowed. I saw Roman tense, preparing to throw himself in front of me, to take the bullets meant to finish the job. He was going to die for me, just like he had tried to die for Elias. No, I didn't think. I didn't weigh the moral implications. I stepped out from behind Roman's shield of muscle and threw the scalpel I had been clutching. It wasn't a precision throw, but it was desperate. The blade buried itself in the lieutenant's neck. He gurgled, eyes widening in shock, and his fingers spasmed on the trigger. The bullets went wild, shattering the ceiling lights. He collapsed, clutching his throat. Roman looked at me, stunned. Then, a feral grin spread across his face. That, he panted, was excellent technique. He grabbed the fallen rifle, finished the remaining gunman with a single burst, and kicked the back door open, the hinges giving way under his boot. We spilled out into the rainy alley, gasping for air, the heat of the burning clinic radiating against our backs. The sirens were getting closer. We collapsed against the brick wall of the adjacent building, soaked to the bone, covered in soot and blood, some ours, some theirs. Roman looked at me. The adrenaline was fading, replaced by the grim reality of our situation. We were fugitives. We had no home, no clinic, no resources. You saved my life, Roman said, wiping a smear of ash from my forehead. You saved mine first, I replied, my hands still shaking, not from fear, but from the rush of violence. Does this mean I'm forgiven? He asked, his eyes searching mine. I looked at the man who had been the villain of my story for 3 years. I saw the grief he carried, the scars I had stitched, and the fierce protectiveness that burned brighter than the fire we had just escaped. No, I said, grabbing the lapels of his ruined jacket and pulling him close. It means you owe me, and I'm going to spend a very long time collecting. Roman laughed, a low, dark sound that vibrated against my chest. I look forward to it, Doctor. He kissed me again, right there in the filth of the alley, while the sirens wailed a song of chaos around us. The Mafia had fallen bleeding at my door, and in stitching him up, I had sewn our fates together. The stitch was rough, ugly, and permanent. And that is how the Doctor tamed the beast, by becoming one himself. If you enjoyed seeing Julian take control and descend into darkness, destroy that like button. And tell me in the comments, would you save the man who you thought killed your family, even if he swore he was innocent? I'll be reading your answers. Subscribe for the next chapter. Until then,